Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Crime Wire Weekly, where we have got a jam-packed episode for y'all today. I know Jim usually does our opener, but today we're switching it up a bit, and I'm going to be giving y'all some insight to what we're covering today.
I've been fired.
He's done. We've cut it. No, I'm just kidding.
Some people might be cheering that.
Yes. They might be like, I don't like this. It's different. They'll have to let us know. But look, we're going to talk about, remember the Devil Wears Dunks documentary that we have been talking about? Well, there's been an update to that case. The wife of the subject of that documentary has been arrested. Right here also in Livingston Parish, a beloved crossing guard was killed by a drunk driver, and we are going to cover that case as well. Now, JP Morgan executive, we haven't said a lot about this type of case, I would say, because this one is out of the box, but a JP Morgan executive is firing back after a sexual harassment lawsuit was filed. And then there's been some updates ever since that dropped and hit social media and became a huge story. In New Orleans, the sheriff, Susan Hutson, was indicted in connection with that massive jailbreak. And we're going to give you more information on that. And Dwane "The Rock" Johnson, he was ticketed in Hollywood. How you feel about that?
I don't think he should ever be ticketed for anything.
Ever.
He could not break the law.
That's a crime against humanity.
Yeah, it is.
In Mississippi, a man has been charged after he was found flushing his mother's remains down a toilet. And then Britney Spears, well, she's back in the news. She pled guilty to reckless driving after her most recent DUI arrest. And in Texas, a spa owner's vitamin over-injection leads to the death of a client. Did you know that was possible?
No.
Yeah, I didn't either, but we did some research on that, and we want to share that with you. And then we're going to go into the true crime time machine, and we are going to cover Two Gun Crowley, which I think that name's pretty legit. And then we're going to talk about a 4-year-old little girl in Louisiana who died after drinking a half bottle of whiskey. And then, of course, we're going to go.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's beyond. And then we'll go into some overtime for everybody that sticks around for that. But for this episode of Crime Wire Weekly, I'm Kelly Jennings.
I'm Jim Chapman.
And it is a great day to be in the world of crime, but there's a lot of really, really wild stories this week.
There are some really, really wild stories.
Quit making fun of me.
No, I'm agreeing with you. But before we get into those stories, hope everyone enjoyed their weekend and they watched the Kentucky Derby or they participated. There was a lot of people, man, everybody in Livingston Parish apparently was at the Kentucky Derby except Jim Chapman this week.
I wasn't there.
I'll tell you what, my Facebook feed is full of people from my area that are there.
I wish I was that cultured, but I've never been, and I don't know that I've ever thought about going, but I'd love to wear the outfit. I would love to wear the big hat.
Yeah.
And be fancy.
Well, you can do that here. You don't have to wait for the Kentucky Derby.
I'm sure nobody would stare. Nobody.
Well, for those that may have missed it, Golden Tempo won the Kentucky Derby. And interesting in that it was the first woman trainer to actually have won the Kentucky Derby. Golden Tempo's trainer, obviously. And Golden Tempo was in last place coming around the final turn of the Kentucky Derby and went all the way from last to first, 23-1 underdog.
That is the best Cinderella story that I've heard in a long time. And I watched a little snippet of the TikTok of the trainer jumping up and down screaming. I said, hell, that looks like me at a T-ball game cheering on my kid. But that was just epic to watch that horse just step for step. It's not over till it's over. And that shows the drive in that animal. And the
drive in the animal, and shout out to the jockey because he knew exactly when to push that horse. That horse is apparently notorious for starting off in the back of the pack and just kind of monitoring, just kind of sitting back there and letting everybody else wear out, because what that horse lacked in speed, it makes up for in endurance. So it would kind of just let everybody kind of start tiring out all those other horses. And then around that back turn, that jockey started kicking it, and that horse passed everybody.
They
and it
better
was
make a
pretty cool to
movie.
watch. You can pull it up on YouTube and watch it. It's, a 1 minute clip or something.
Yeah.
But amazing to kind of watch that horse go from last to first. It's
amazing.
Unreal.
It really is a feat of strength and endurance, like you said. And I'm so happy for them because you worked so hard, you trained so hard, and then to win it all when you were in last place in the last stretch, excellence.
Yeah.
Pure excellence.
So shout out to the Kentucky Derby for entertaining many people this weekend. Let us know if you went to the Kentucky Derby or if you. I know there was a lot of people that had get-togethers. There was something going on in Florida at like Pensacola Beach or something like that, where a lot of my friends went. That was like some sort of derby get-together, and you dressed as if you were at the derby.
Yeah, I saw one of those.
You were really at the beach.
I saw one of those, and I felt so attacked because one lady goes, I think I misunderstood the dress for the Kentucky Derby because they all showed up in their fine wear, and she was dressed as a jockey.
Hey, that's cool. I like that.
That'd be my dumbass.
All right. Well, let's get into today's stories, and we're going to let Kelly start off first since you started off our. Well, I'll start off first. So, because Kelly, y'all, if we change it up, it'll blow her mind.
Ooh, I like consistency.
Yeah.
You threw me when you said, why don't you open it? Whoa.
So we're going to start off in Denham Springs, Louisiana, right here where we are recording. And Melissa Luke, who is 49 and the wife of Ricky Foster, who we brought you his story a couple of weeks ago. He was the subject of the Devil Wears Dunks documentary. He was arrested for all kinds of sick shit. I don't even know. Go back and listen to that one if you want to hear it. But Melissa Luke, who is his wife now, they recently married, and there's a reason for that. She's 49 years old. She has been arrested for crimes against nature directly related to this case against Ricky. So she has been put in jail. She self-reported to jail to be booked. And I wanted to let everybody know kind of what crimes against nature is because it's kind of a confusing statute. So it's Louisiana Revised Statute 1489, and it criminalizes unnatural carnal copulation by a human with another same or opposite sex or with an animal. It covers non-procreative sexual acts such as anal or oral sex and can apply to certain incestuous relationships. Now, I don't think this involves animals.
I don't either.
I don't think it. So it's one of the other things, or maybe a combination of the other things. Convictions, incidentally, can include up to 5 years in prison, a $2,000 fine, or both.
Yeah. And so obviously from what we've seen in the documentary and all of that, this would include that her daughter was brought into this whole story, and there were questions about his relationship and all this kind of stuff. So for her to be arrested here and be charged with that, it's looking like exactly what makes everybody pretty uncomfortable, that there's some type of sexual relationship going on, but there's Ricky, there's the wife, and there is the daughter. Now,
let's just say what it is. It's a threesome involving daughter and her mom and her husband.
And the stepdad,
which would be the stepdad of the daughter.
He's dual role.
Sick AF.
Sick shit. So he's also charged with what they call third-degree rape. So that's the former
10 counts.
Yeah, that's the former simple rape charge, which we changed the name, and I agree it shouldn't be simple rape but that's because it's the without consent thing. Now, what's interesting here, and some things that I was curious about, is that if they both have the crime against nature charge, I am curious as to why it's not being bumped up to aggravated. And the reason I say that is because aggravated crime against nature is whenever, well, there's lots of reasons it could be that, but one of them is that if it's your biological child, your stepdaughter, or even an adoptive kid, then that ups that ups the sick level, that ups the problem here. Because I mean, if you have a step parent, you would be like, ugh, right? You'd be like puking thinking about this. But that's kind of what's going on. If that's the case, that's going to even put more time. If it was upgraded, we don't know what's going to happen here, but I mean, that's up to a $50,000 fine and 5 to 20 years. So I'll be curious to see where that goes. She does only have one count here. So that's kind of interesting to me too, compared to all the counts he has.
Yeah.
But it's still unraveling. So we'll see where this one is. But y'all need to go watch that documentary. If you have nothing to do and you want to see something interesting, go find that Devil Wears Dunks, and it'll get you all updated on what's going on here.
Yeah,
right here in our neck of the woods.
Right.
But we're not going to even go far and this one hits close, y'all, because we know this victim here. A beloved crossing guard has died after being struck by an alleged drunk driver in Livingston Parish. And on Thursday, April the 30th, the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office revealed in a Facebook post that Katie Wells was fatally hit by a vehicle on Louisiana Highway 16 at around 3:30 local time. The incident took place during the afternoon school dismissal. She had served Livingston Parish in multiple capacities over the last 40 years. And so I think that's a testament to why so many people, including myself, are so hurt by this, because I knew Miss Katie. I know Jim, and I know your wife was close with Miss Katie. Everybody knew Miss Katie in this parish. Now, the guy was arrested and he was brought to jail. It was revealed that his name is Darren Gudo, 64 years old. And when they put him in jail, it was first offense DWI and vehicular homicide. Then to add insult to injury, we got an update that he actually had another DWI. This was his second offense after officials found that he had a prior arrest in September of 2022. And so lots of outpouring of grief and just, distress over this. Even if you didn't know Miss Katie personally, everyone in this parish knew her because they drove through her crossing zone. And people who said, I never spoke to her, oh my God, no, I see her every morning. No. It just is the impact that is just echoing around our parish.
Yeah, and impact is a great word for that, because that's what she had. Look, I'm telling y'all, you may be thinking, how entertaining can a crossing guard be? People would go out of their way to let Miss Katie direct them through an intersection. She was so good at it, and she was no spring chicken. She's 74 years old and out there directing traffic to an extent that a 20-year-old couldn't do it. This
was incredible.
Just really, really good at her job. As a matter of fact, I used to joke and say, I need to go out there and just film her every day and drop it on TikTok. And I can make a ton of money for me and her because she was just so good at it, loved her job. She had a major impact on this community. Thoughts and prayers out. 5 children, of course, all adults now, but nonetheless, they are, I'm sure, really hurting. And so my thoughts and prayers, of course, go out to them.
And I want to add this, too, that last night we had a beautiful vigil held at the school where she worked. Hundreds of people showed up to that vigil, people who didn't even know her, students. And it was just a beautiful example of how every hero doesn't always have to make, it doesn't always have to have Superman status. Some heroes are simply crossing guards in a parish. And she made that difference in this parish. And so to everyone that knew her and loved her, please know that when we say our hearts and our prayers are with you, we're hurting with you. And people need to do better. Darren Gudo, shame on you.
Yeah, there's little people in this world that I consider more scum than drunk drivers, because I consider it such a selfish criminal act. There are way too many options out there these days than to get in a car when you've been drinking. Uber is the simplest thing in the world, or whatever the other one is, I guess the competition to Uber, what is it, Lyft? Yeah, one of those things. Any of those are so easy to do. Look, when I was freaking in college, you had to wait for a taxi for 2.5 hours, but we did it.
Yeah, and what time of the day was it? Or we
had a designated driver.
And
but time of the day makes no difference. You should not jump in a vehicle when you've been drinking.
No, what I'm saying is,
I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the morning.
What I'm saying, though, is that it was 3:30 in the afternoon in a school zone. Like, damn, how are you?
But you shouldn't drive drunk ever,
you
anywhere.
Shouldn't, but I'm just saying it's adding insult to injury here that you're drinking and driving, which is horrific. Then you're willing to just go blowing through a school zone where there's children. And this lady gave her life to try to stop you so that you would not hit a bus full of children. And I know I'm getting animated here, but this is, just to your point, so preventable.
Yeah,
so
and
unnecessary.
do we know, it hasn't been released that I've seen, whether he was speeding or not, whether he just lost control of his vehicle. Do we know any of that?
Well, nothing officially that I can say that I can report to, but I do know that people that were near and on the scene said that he struck her and then he just kept driving and then he eventually pulled over a little further down the road.
I mean, it doesn't matter. It resulted in a death. I was just curious if that had been reported yet.
Nothing official to go on. But, children on the bus saw this happen.
Yeah.
And
horrific.
And then her life is gone. And just to that point, and don't mean to belabor it, but y'all, she volunteered. That was not even her school where she got struck. She was assigned to a different school, but for the safety of the kids, because that was such a major highway, she would get in her car and drive. After she left 7th Ward, she would drive down to Grays Creek, and then she would volunteer to help work that highway because it was so dangerous. And she lost her life and I would say in the line of duty here. And we all were just blessed to have her out there working that traffic.
All right, look, I'm going to say this right now. If you're hopefully you don't listen to the show with kids. This is not a kid-friendly show. There's too much crime going on to let the kids listen. But if for some reason they're in a room or even within earshot, take them out of the room now because this one, it can get a little wild. I'm going to tell you about a J.P. Morgan executive. Her name is Lorna Hajdini. And Lorna Hajdini was a high-ranking executive, 37 years old. Incidentally, just absolutely gorgeous woman for all intent. And it matters in this case, and I'm going to tell you why. She gets a lawsuit filed on her. This is April 27th of 2026. And that lawsuit was filed under the pseudonym John Doe. And this is typically done when you see these sexual harassment cases. And it's because someone, doesn't want to make it public that they were sexually harassed. Totally get it. But in this case, it was a little bit different. It was a male filing against a female, which is enough to kind of raise some eyebrows because you don't see that a lot. Mm-hmm. Certainly it can happen, but it's not a common thing. Now, according to the now retracted complaint, the alleged abuse began in spring of 2024, shortly after Hajdini and Rana, his last name is Rana, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his first name, but they join JP Morgan Chase and she becomes his boss. And it paints a lurid picture of coercion that you're just not going to believe. So I'm going to give you some incidents that he reported against her in this lawsuit. It's pretty wild. In one early incident in May of 2024 near Rana's desk, Hajdini drops her pen, right? She rubs his leg, allegedly dropped her pen. And he says when she picked her pen up, she rubs his leg, she squeezed his calf, and she remarked, and I'm quoting here, "Oh, you did play basketball in college. I love basketball players. They get me so wet." Unquote. Later, and if that actually happened, that's not cool, right?
Yeah.
Later that month, after Rana supposedly declined drinks from her, she was inviting him to go have drinks. She started getting aggravated about this. This woman allegedly was not used to being turned down, and she said, "If you don't F me soon, I'm going to ruin you. Never effing forget I own you." She allegedly propositioned him for oral sex on multiple occasions, taunting birthday BJ for the brown boy, my little brown boy. And y'all, he was of Indian descent. So basically some racial remarks there. Mm-hmm. The most graphic allegations centered around encounters at Rana's Manhattan apartment in the summer of 2024. Hajdini purportedly showed up unannounced, removed her shirt, fondled her breast in front of him, and sneered, quote, "I bet," I can't believe she said this, y'all, "I bet your little Asian fish head wife doesn't have these cannons." This is not made up, y'all. This is real. This is inside the documents. You can't make this shit up. So he resisted that, he says, allegedly, and then she allegedly removed his pants and performed oral sex on him against his will, raped him. That's what he's saying. Rana reportedly protested and began crying. Hajdini allegedly snaps, quote, "Don't start effing crying. You think anyone would believe you? You're an effing douchebag who thinks he's hot shit, but you can't even get your penis hard for me. What the F is this? She then allegedly ordered him to perform oral sex on her. In a second alleged apartment encounter, the same period, Hutson reportedly forced Rana to suck her toes. Suck her toes, just like last week when we covered the foot fetish.
I was about to say, maybe she needs to.
She pushes him to the ground. She sits on his face, and she berated him for failing to maintain an erection. When he begged, "I'm very uncomfortable. Please, Lorna, please, I'm begging you." She allegedly laughed and made a racist remark about the taste of his genitals. At least your genitals didn't taste like curry. I swear she said that. Oh, it's in the document. Allegedly. The complaint further alleged Hutson drugged Rana with rohypnol, which is roofies, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and an erection-enhancing substance, I would imagine like Viagra, and drugs him without his knowledge to facilitate these encounters. In late September of 2024, she screamed about his business performance and threatened, "If you don't F my brains out tonight, I will make you pay. I'm going to sabotage your promotion." Rana claimed he submitted out of fear. So Hutson reportedly called him all kinds of names that I'm not even going to get into, that would be considered racially insulting names for someone of Indian descent. And so he files this internal complaint in May of 2025 based on this harassment. And according to him, JP Morgan retaliated by placing him on what's known as involuntary leave, basically. They said, "We're going to investigate this, but you can't work here while we're doing it." He said at that point they locked him out of the system and basically blackballed him. Now, the next day after this lawsuit drops, Hutson and JP Morgan come out and they say what you think they would have said. They say, "This guy's full of shit. None of this happened. He's making this whole thing up." Well, as soon as they do that, all of a sudden he recants his lawsuit, and the recantation gets pulled off of the internet. So it's in the New York filing system. Anybody can download it. It gets pulled off, and it basically said being adjusted for errors. So there were some errors in there, probably everything he said before it's uploaded. So I don't know if this happened, didn't happen, but I find this pretty hard to believe.
Yeah. All right. So this
doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah. This is where I'm at. We don't know, right?
We don't know.
We don't know. So with that blanket statement there that we don't know, there's a few things that when I read that, because I read the article multiple times to understand exactly what was going on. And the thing is that I am a huge fan of evidence. Okay. I'm a huge fan of evidence. And they stated in there at some point that whenever he was asked about the filing, he refused about information to help with the case or whatever, that he refused to cooperate after he filed the lawsuit. And there was more to this that said he also had gone in before he quit or whenever he was leaving, and he had tried to make a demand for some type of money before he left, and that they would not do that. And so I don't know. Again, we don't know, but I'm getting the feeling only based on the articles because I was not there. But I feel like he may have filed this in hopes of maybe getting some type of quick settlement, easy money, thinking that, oh my God, they can afford to pay me this money. It would be an easy money grab because these are huge claims. I mean, these are absolutely huge claims that they know. You know, you can't unring the bell. I mean, we have just said this woman's name and said some horrific things that allegedly he's saying occurred, but then he's not willing to work with that. They're pulling the lawsuit down. I think that there's an issue here because he gets the benefit of being a John Doe status at first, makes these horrific claims. Apparently they come back swinging. And I don't think that I have ever if I was forced into a sexual situation with somebody that I did not want, why did he then open the door when she allegedly came back multiple times after that at this apartment? I'm not buying it. It's not passing the test for me. And I think that this was a quick money grab, and shame if it's not real, because this woman is now going to be dragged through the mud. Well,
and look, on the the internet's undefeated, right? And this thing went viral in one day, and there's one reason for that. As I said, this is a very attractive woman, and so you see this on like Facebook or on Twitter or X or whatever, and they've got a picture of her that says that she's sexually harassing this guy, and every dude in the world is saying, bullshit.
Yeah.
This dude was not crying.
No.
This dude was, I don't know if it's BS or not, but I can tell you it seems like it might be.
Pretty sus.
I don't believe him.
I
got a right not to believe him. I don't believe him.
I don't
and
either.
I have no evidence one way or the other, but
I don't either. And I think that even if she comes back and files, a defamation lawsuit or something like that, it'll never, we don't know, but I don't believe him based on everything I've seen either. And I would be mortified if I was that woman that someone would say that about me, especially if it wasn't true. Good Lord. All right, let's move to New Orleans, which is just right down the road. And we covered recently that there had been a massive jailbreak, the biggest one in the state for sure. And now there's been an update to this. So the Orleans Parish Sheriff, Susan Hutson, was indicted Wednesday on 30 felony counts, including malfeasance in office, obstruction of justice, and falsifying public records, following a special grand jury investigation into last year's mass escape of 10 inmates from the Orleans Justice Center. Now, the charges stem from the May 16th, 2025 jailbreak, which was one of the largest in recent U.S. history, in which inmates used a hole behind a ripped-out toilet in a cell to crawl to freedom, triggering a months-long manhunt involving hundreds of federal, state, and local officials. So the Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill announced the indictment, saying that a state probe found Hutson's office failed to address these long-standing security deficiencies, including defective locks, poor maintenance, and ignored warnings that enabled the escape. Hutson, who is set to leave office as her term ends on Monday, was booked into the Jefferson Parish Jail Wednesday night before being released on a $300,000 bond. She was ordered to surrender her passport, and she has to stay in Louisiana. So Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office Chief Financial Officer Bianca Brown was also indicted on 20 similar felony counts. The indictment does not allege that Hutson or Brown directly assisted the inmates in the escape, but it accuses them of systemic failures in oversight and of allegedly obstructing the subsequent investigation by filing or maintaining false public records. All 10 escapees were eventually recaptured, and the breakout drew national attention as well as intense criticism of the chronically troubled Orleans Parish jail system, which has a history of security lapses under multiple sheriffs. Now, Hutson's entire campaign that she ran was on jail reform, but faced ongoing scrutiny over conditions at the facility. Her office has not yet issued a public statement on any of these charges. The case was investigated by the Louisiana AG's office and a state auditor. A bill of indictment details the alleged offenses, which date back to at least 2022, and legal analysts describe the prosecution of a sitting sheriff as very unusual, noting that while jail escapes have occurred under previous sheriffs, none resulted in criminal charges against the top official. So the indictment caps a difficult chapter in her tenure, and it's calling for greater accountability and reform in the jail operations.
Yeah, and a blind man could see this was going to happen 6 months ago. You don't have the biggest jailbreak in the history of the state of Louisiana and not the people at the top paying for it. And the bottom line is she was a sheriff. And, at the end of the day, everything's her fault, whether it is or not. And I'm sure that they started investigating this thing and found a lot of lackadaisical things that she was doing relative to leading that department. And they were able to tie that back to probably some of the reasons that these 10 inmates were able to escape, and dangerous inmates at that.
Yeah, these weren't just, someone who stole an apple. I mean, these were murderers, some of them that got out.
Someone who stole an apple? That's just strange.
Well, I'm just saying, these aren't some minor drunks on a corner or something like that. These were,
I like that better.
There you go.
Stolen apple?
These are some serious charges. Now, I understand that someone's got to take the fall for this massive embarrassment. What I don't understand, though, is that we've got now falsified documents on behalf of a financial officer. And so I do take great issue with that. And the fact that the sheriff was charged with this as well. There's something to this, because
there's no doubt.
I believe that the AG's office understands that, duty and honor and all of that as far as law enforcement goes. But now you're falsifying documents. There's a lot of stink on this, more than just taking the fall.
CFO definitely going down for that. And the surprising thing to me was they already have a new sheriff in place, and that's an elected position. So that kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Well, they have to have I'm sure they have to have a temporary.
But who appoints that?
I don't know. I actually should probably know that, but it might be that the second in command became the first in command. I don't know. Maybe chain of command just took over.
It could be, but I would imagine at some point they're going to have a special election and re-elect another sheriff.
Sure.
This person might just be a fill-in until that point. Okay.
I'm assuming this is probably the person that was underneath. I was trying to see. I don't have a picture of the person who took over.
Like the chief deputy.
Yeah, I was trying to look at brass or something, but yeah, I'm interested in this one because wow, for the AG's office to go after a law enforcement official, there's a lot there.
All right, let's go to Hollywood, California.
Indeed.
And are you a fan of The Rock?
I am.
Have you smelled what The Rock is cooking?
I thought you were going to say, have you ever smelled The Rock? I'm going to be like, no, I don't know.
Do you know what if you smell what The Rock is cooking is?
It sounds like meth, but I don't know.
You don't watch wrestling, do you? He started out in wrestling.
I do know that.
And he would say, if you smell what The Rock is cooking.
I don't get it.
Oh, y'all.
Like, what is
this second week in a row? She's like, she didn't know who Kojak was.
I am
last
uncultured.
Week. This
swine.
week, she don't know who The Rock is.
I know who The Rock is. I don't know what cooking rock. It sounds like meth.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
I watch boxing.
Okay. Anyway,
let's get into
this story. Dwane "The Rock" Johnson was pulled over by LAPD police officers, and get this, just minutes after leaving a star-studded Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony honoring his friend and co-star Emily Blunt. The 53-year-old actor and former WWE superstar had attended the joint ceremony for Blunt and Stanley Tucci at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood Boulevard. Johnson, who co-starred with Blunt in the 2021 Disney film Jungle Cruise and the biopic that has been airing just for a little while now, it might still be in theaters. I saw it. The Smashing Machine. Actually, it's out of theaters now. Delivered a warm speech praising his colleagues, saying every single day, knowing Emily, as many of us do, this is a grateful woman who will wake up, feet on the ground, being grateful for every moment. So he goes to this event, he leaves, and as he's leaving, he's driving a black SUV. He gets stopped by LAPD police officers less than 2 miles from this ceremony on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And they pull him over, and he's like, what am I being pulled over for? And guess what they pulled him over for?
Tell me.
Illegal tint. Yeah. Illegal tint. You're pulling over the freaking Rock for illegal tint.
They didn't know it was The Rock because they couldn't see in the car.
They knew it was The Rock.
No.
They wanted an autograph on that freaking ticket.
Nah.
So they pull him over, and they tell him, hey, your window tint is too dark, Rock. And video footage captured that brief traffic stop. And The Rock, look, he is just cool as a cucumber out there. Mm-hmm. Very nice, very polite. He remained out of the driver's side door, not wanting the officers to feel threatened. And y'all, The Rock's a big dude. I'm sure we've all seen The Rock. Mm-hmm. He's about 6'5", and he's bigger than most 20-year-olds and ripped to shreds. So he doesn't want to make any fast movements, but the police officers stand there. They say, you're getting a ticket for no tint. They write him the ticket. He thanks them very much for their service, and he leaves.
Yeah, and I think I actually have this nailed down. I know exactly what happened here. I think that he has illegally dark tint for his own safety and privacy because he is famous and he knows that the paparazzi are going to be taking pictures of him 24/7. He knows that he may have his children in the car or whatever. Now, I also think that he knows that his tent is illegal. I don't think that he cares. And I think, but listen, I'm saying this actually in his defense.
Oh, I'm agreeing with you.
Absolutely in his defense. I think he's rich enough to say, you know what? I know it's illegal. It's for my own safety, but I am no different than anybody else. So I will pay the fine anytime that I get pulled over. But I think that this is one of those things where he's like, it's worth it. It's worth the cost of the ticket for me to not have people chasing me down the highways, taking pictures of me. This is a legit dude, historically speaking. And I'm not surprised by any of this. His behavior was on point. He's a good guy.
Why is he driving his own vehicle, though?
Because he's a person.
You're the Rock, bro. You're not a person.
Yeah, he is.
You're the Rock. No, he's not.
That's the thing. He's
Those
down to
people
earth.
are not people. He lives no kind of life like you and I live and never will. And that's not throwing shade on him. I love the Rock, but the Rock could be driven everywhere and stay out of these problems. It's kind of like Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, is
flipping vehicles
left, right, and sideways. And I'm like, why are you even driving? You could pay a driver, and every day of your life, have someone drive you. I respect it, but
he's real people, and I bet you this is the deal. He wanted to go there, drive his own car. He could go drive into a back gate. No one would know it was him. He could get back in his car and he could leave. No one would know it was him because of the tent. But the cop pulls him over, and
then writes him the ticket.
Well, I mean, that's not a negotiable. I mean, it's too dark.
Whatever.
He would write you the ticket.
Pulled over. Really?
You would get the ticket.
Really?
Yeah.
You sure about that?
I'd write you a ticket.
You sure
Jim?
about that?
Yeah.
You would write me a ticket. But that don't mean I ain't never been pulled over and not got a ticket.
I'm calling everyone in Livingston Parish to write Jim a ticket.
They ain't going to listen to you. They ain't going to listen to you. Well, shout out to The Rock.
Yeah.
For not, being a Hollywood jerk and saying, do you know who I am? I'm The Rock. He took his medicine.
Yeah.
And you're right. He probably, I don't know how much a legal tent is, $100 ticket or something like that.
Him.
He could get 1 million of them and it's not going to bother him. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? To that point, paparazzi laws, and I don't mean to go down a rabbit hole, and I'm not, but paparazzi laws don't seem to protect these people. And I know for a fact they try to spur these people, get them mad, weave in and out of traffic to try to, and it gets dangerous. And we don't live that life to that point. We don't live that life. We don't know what it's like. And so for safety reasons, I can understand it. And he did the right thing. He's going to pay the ticket and go out his day. Life's good.
And he probably likes Tint. It's funny. It'd be funny if it had nothing to do with what you said.
I know.
And he's just like, no, it just looks good on the vehicle,
it looks
dude.
sick, Kelly. Shut up.
I don't care if people see me.
Stupid woman.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go in a totally different direction here, and we're going to go to Natchez, Mississippi. So a 29-year-old Mississippi man has been charged with first and second-degree murder, mayhem, and tampering with physical evidence after authorities say he killed his 62-year-old retired teacher mother, dismembered her body, and then was caught flushing pieces of her flesh down a toilet. So Adams County Sheriff Travis Patton described the April 4th discovery inside of Lana Brown Bradley's Natchez home as by far the most heinous crime that I've ever witnessed in my entire life. And he added, this is a case that follows you home. Deputies responded to a welfare check after Bradley's oldest son reported that he had not heard from his mama. When officers arrived, they found the home being aggressively cleaned with chemicals. The floors were slippery. There was a smell of cleaning agents that just filled the air. And in a downstairs bathroom, deputies encountered Zachary Lavelle Jackson Jr., which is Bradley's youngest son, and he lived with her, actively flushing what they called a black substance down the toilet. That substance was later confirmed to be his mother's flesh. So a plumber was called to remove the toilet, and it revealed additional human remains lodged down inside of the pipes. A search of the 2-acre property uncovered more dismembered body parts, including Miss Bradley's head, in a wooded area and other pieces stuffed inside of a suitcase. Sheriff Patton said Jackson had chopped her up in pieces and dismembered her in a way that whoever may have come looking for her would have had to have done their due diligence to find her. Miss Bradley was a beloved educator with more than 30 years in the Natchez classrooms. She was a published poet and had recently threatened to evict her son the day before her death. And she had even gone to the extent of going to court trying to seek his removal from her home. Family members told investigators that her son was mentally unstable. Jackson waived his right to a preliminary hearing on April 28th and is being held without bond. The case has been forwarded to a grand jury, and no motive beyond the eviction dispute has been publicly confirmed.
I think it's kind of captain obvious there that he's mentally unstable.
Yeah.
I come across a lot of articles and things like that it's these familiar homicides where it's family members killing family members.
Yeah. And she's just, you look at her, she's a classy, beautiful woman. And he looks a bit disheveled in his arrest photo. This is a shame too, because, in I know Louisiana and in other states, I'm sure, but if someone lives in your home, even if it's not their home, they live in your home as their primary address for so many days, they claim residency there, you can't just make them leave. Even if you pay the house note, even if you own the home, you have to go through actual eviction proceedings. And the fact that he was allegedly mentally ill here, that's scary. And your own mother is going to court to get you out. That tells you how dangerous she must have felt the situation was. And unfortunately, she paid with her life.
Yeah.
Golly, man, I can't.
And flushing her remains down a toilet. I can't think of anything more disrespectful outside of killing her that you could do. Let's go to California, and we're going to tell you about another superstar. Hollywood-esque type person, and this is pop superstar Britney Spears. She pleaded guilty Monday to a reduced charge of reckless driving. This is in relation to her DUI case that occurred in March. Under her plea deal, she did avoid jail time. She did get 12 months of probation, a substance abuse education program, and mandatory mental health treatment. So she's 44 years old now, Britney Spears. She didn't actually appear in court. She had her attorneys, her representatives there appear for her, and she took a plea on behalf to a misdemeanor. And the name of this misdemeanor is one I'm going to need Kelly to explain to me.
Okay.
A wet, reckless violation.
I don't think that we actually have that in the state of Louisiana worded that way, but I think that this is going to be that you have some type of intoxicant that has caused you to be impaired of some sort.
Okay. That's strange. They call it wet, reckless violation.
Yeah.
The obvious inference, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so it covers reckless driving, including alcohol or drugs. So you were correct. The original DUI charge was dismissed. Spears was arrested by the California Highway Patrol on March 4th after officers spotted her driving her BMW too fast, and erratically she was charged with one count of misdemeanor driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And yet another person that could pay to have someone else drive her if she's drinking, right? Ventura County Superior Court Commissioner Matthew Nemerson sentenced her to that 12-month of probation. She had some fines. She's got to go to do some 30 hours of court of classroom instruction, things of that nature.
That someone else is going to do for her, I'm sure.
Things of that nature. Now, as part of the plea deal, Spears agreed to continue mental health and substance abuse treatment. She must see a psychologist once a week and a psychiatrist twice a month. So she did get a little bit of mental health stuff involved in that. She hasn't publicly commented on the case, but it's not her first kind of go around with driving while intoxicated or under the influence. 18 years ago, she actually had a 2007 DUI arrest that led to a driver's license suspension. She has remains active on social media. If you've seen her Instagram, it is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Yeah. But I'll say this about Britney Spears: there's very few people on this earth that know what it's like to be Britney Spears. Britney Spears was heavily abused until about 4 years ago by her parents, basically. Controlling her entire life to a disgusting degree.
Yeah. Let me add this real quick. I did do some research while you were talking, and it says a wet reckless in California is basically a plea bargained reduction of a DUI involving alcohol, but basically it's because if your blood alcohol content was like near 0.08, but maybe wasn't quite there, and the evidence might be a little bit weaker, that's how they're able to do that plea reduction on that. So again, I'm not a expert in California law or anything, but this is my issue right now. And maybe it's because I'm heightened right now in my emotions over Miss Katie, but someone's abuse or not, horrible life or not, this is eventually going to escalate, and I don't want someone else to get hurt. And I don't want anything to happen to Britney either. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, there's a lot going on. Clearly, there's a mental health issue happening. If you look at her Instagram, if you look at her social media.
And that's what I was talking about. I'm not talking about her drinking and driving. I'm just talking about her mental stability is not there because she was mentally abused in a lot of ways.
Right. And we're seeing the effects of it.
Stand with anybody on that and holding them down.
And we're seeing the effects of that. And I'm totally empathetic or sympathetic to that plight that she has been.
Absolutely.
Horrible.
But so it still doesn't give her a license to drink and drive.
Right. And so it's been pled down to a misdemeanor. And so what? Nothing's going to happen. And then what happens when someone gets killed? Like, what happens?
Hopefully there won't be an
I know, but this is what, her second?
Yeah, Kelly.
So how many chances are we going to give people?
I don't know. You could put her in jail for the rest of her life.
I don't think we should do that either. But I think that, this mental health counseling, we need some type of improvement, not just a doctor who's going to sign off on it for, some cash and say she's fine, because she's not. And everybody sees that. I want her to get help, like genuinely. I wish Britney could get better because she's very talented and very important to a lot of people,
She's an icon.
I think so.
Like Elvis Presley or, Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
She's way up there, man.
Yeah, definitely.
But they also had their issues with drugs, didn't they? See a connection there?
Yeah, I do. I do. All right, let's go to Texas.
All right.
Right. And this was one I think that shocked both of us because we weren't aware that this is a thing here. But a Texas medical spa owner was indicted on felony murder and then other charges in the 2023 death of a 47-year-old mother who suffered a cardiac arrest event. And it was all due to receiving an intravenous, what they call a cocktail of the vitamins and electrolytes that the authorities are saying were administered too quickly, and there wasn't proper medical oversight. So I want to ask you real quick, have you ever gotten one of those infusions, the vitamin infusions and all that kind of stuff?
No.
So my husband works outdoors, and sometimes he'll get in this South Louisiana hot, muggy heat. He'll get overheated, and it'll make him feel sick. So he would go get those. I've never thought twice about it. I never thought it could be an issue, and this is actually opening my eyes to it. So Amber Nicole Johnson, who owns the Lux Med Spa by Amber Johnson in Wortham, turned herself in after a grand jury returned with an indictment charging her with murder, manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide, and multiple counts of delivery of a dangerous drug, practicing medicine without a license, and then tampering or fabricating physical evidence. They set her bond at $69,000. So basically what happened was Johnson was accused of giving this IV infusion herself to Jennifer Cleveland. This was back on July 10th of 23, and she got there at 10:55 a.m. Johnson began the treatment at 11:04. Now, the infusion had vitamin B complex, ascorbic acid, and then vitamin B12, electrolytes, all those things. But what I didn't realize was you have to have a prescription for this solution because it's got potassium chloride. And if you give that too quickly, that is what poses the risk of a cardiac event. So according to the court documents, the Texas Medical Board did an investigation, and Johnson, who does not hold a medical license, administered the solution in this way too fast of a manner. And so at 11:31, right after the treatment started, that's whenever Miss Cleveland started saying, look, I don't feel well. So Johnson sat her up, said, oh, take some deep breaths. But she then lost consciousness, and then she had no pulse. So the Johnson lady started doing CPR. She did find a vape pen inside of Miss Cleveland's bra, and she pulled that out, continued the resuscitation, tried to call 911 twice from the spa's phone, but the line was busy, so she didn't get through. And then she used her cell phone and called EMS. They responded very quickly, where they took her straight to the hospital, but she was dead within 3 or 4 minutes of arrival. They pronounced her dead. So the final autopsy results showed her death was caused of a sudden cardiac death of uncertain etiology, and the manner was ruled as unknown. But in the report, they noted that the IV therapy cannot be ruled in or ruled out as contribution to why she died. And the postmortem toxicology came back, which is important because it said that there was tramadol and trazodone in her system, and that was not administered by the spa. So trazodone and tramadol are like tranquilizers of type. So like trazodone, you can take it for sleep aid and some other things. So just earlier too, Miss Cleveland had posted how great that spa was and that they do a great job. And she had signed consent forms indicating that she had no chronic medical conditions. She said she wasn't on medicine and that she was not under a physician's care. So what comes to light now with all of that said is that there had already been some citations handed down against a doctor that actually owned that facility because there was no medically licensed personnel present and there was little to no training on what to do if there were complications when they were administering this stuff. And so you've got to have, like I said, a prescription to do this, and people can get in a bind quickly. So the attorney comes forward and said, look, my client cooperated fully with the grand jury, provided surveillance video, secured the IV bag. The Texas Medical Board's 2024 review highlighted that there was multiple failures at the spa, including no protocols. I mean, it just seems like this was done just very willy-nilly, and they were just making their money. The spa did close immediately after this, and Dr. Michael Patrick Gallagher, who was the medical director, was notified as soon as it had happened, but he was not present that day. Now, Dr. Gallagher is an anesthesiologist that's based in Frisco, which is 100 miles away, if not more. He had to turn himself in as well, and he's facing charges of murder, manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide, and multiple counts of delivery of a dangerous drug, and his bond exceeded the $96,000. But what caught my attention was the medical board had previously suspended his license, citing his failure to supervise Johnson and the spa's operations. So he had already been told, you're not doing this right. So he hasn't yet entered his plea. And this is now really put into the spotlight that these medical spas that are offering these these vitamins and all of that, they can be dangerous.
Yeah, I would say 99.9% of the time they're great for you. I know a lot of people that get those vitamin infusions. I have no problems with them. But, you got to have someone on staff that is qualified medically. And obviously that was a big issue here.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, risk assessment alone should tell you that this is improper. This is just to that point, it's important to make sure when you go get this stuff done, is there a medical person on staff in the event something goes wrong? Take care in what you put into your body.
All right, let's go to Miami. And a U.S. Secret Service agent was arrested early Monday after he allegedly followed hotel guests in a menacing manner and then masturbates in front of them at a DoubleTree hotel near the Miami International Airport. John Spillman, who is 33 of Marble Falls, Texas, and based in Washington, D.C., was taken into custody by the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office just after midnight after being arrested at the DoubleTree by Hilton Hotel on a misdemeanor charge of indecent exposure. According to the arrest warrant, the incident unfolded late Sunday night on the hotel's 6th floor. Guests told deputies they were in the lobby when Spillman began following them, leaving them, quote, in fear for their lives. The victims retreated into the room where they spotted Spillman masturbating next to their door. They called hotel security, who arrived to find him with his pants still lowered and continuing the act in the hallway. Spillman had been assigned to the South Florida Department as part of a security perimeter screening detail for President Donald Trump's visit to the PGA Cadillac Championship at Trump National Doral. His official duties ended Sunday, and he was off duty at the time of the incident. The Secret Service placed Spillman on administrative leave pending the outcome of the criminal investigation. Quote, the alleged conduct is unacceptable and stands in stark contrast to the professionalism and integrity I demand in our personnel, that from the chief of the Secret Service. This agency takes these matters very serious. Consequently, the individual has been placed on leave. Spielman was booked into the Turner Knight Correctional Center, and a judge set his bond at just $1,000 during Monday's bond hearing, and he's expected to be released after posting bond and scheduled to return back to court on May 27th.
Okay, suggestion. Maybe you need to do, some secret servicing of yourself. Don't do it in public.
Right.
You work for the Secret Service. Do it. But no, I think that bond is way too low. I do not take kindly to this is sexual predation. I don't care who you work for. If you have the audacity to pull your pants down and be masturbating outside of a door in public, there's something incredibly wrong with you.
Now, it doesn't say in this article, but I would almost bet you every dollar I have he was either drunk out of his mind or he was drugged out of his mind.
I would probably agree, but either way,
no, I'm not making an excuse for it. I'm just saying,
unbecoming.
Dude, this is a Secret Service agent. They are vetted to the core. Like, this ain't an officer that was, a deputy in a really small town with 4 people there, and it's Barney Fife. Oh, no. This guy's been vetted. This guy's, in every aspect of his life, probably a professional, and then does something like this. It seems to me this might be drug or alcohol related. I would almost bet on it, but no excuse. Masturbate in privacy.
Yeah,
dude.
I don't know. Sex acts like that bother me. Even if you're a great person and you messed up and you were hammered drunk, why would you do just because you're drunk? Like, why is that the thing you go to? My go-to move when I'm drunk is to dance and spill my drink everywhere, not to go, rip my clothes off and attack doors. What's your go-to move when you're drinking, Jim?
Rip my clothes off and run naked through a building. I don't know. Look, I've done a lot of crazy stuff drunk. I've never done that.
Yeah.
But I've never done that. But,
hey.
Don't get me started.
Okay. All right.
Let's go to the next door.
Yeah, we're going to be speaking of alcohol. And if there's anything that gets me fired up, it's when people hurt children. And so this one's a hard one. A Louisiana jury has convicted a grandmother of manslaughter in the death of her 4-year-old granddaughter, who authorities say was forced to drink a lethal amount of whiskey while on her knees as punishment for allegedly taking a sip from a bottle that was on the kitchen counter. Roxanne Record, 57, was found guilty in the April 21st, 2022 death of China Record. According to EBR parish authorities, Roxanne became angry after she thought that the toddler might have taken a sip from a Canadian Mist whiskey that was left on the counter at the family's home. She forced the child to consume the remainder of the bottle, possibly more than half full, while the girl's mother, I think you would say this is Khadija, I don't know how you'd say it, Record, watched. And this mother watched and did not intervene. The child was made to kneel in the hallway while drinking. First responders found the baby unresponsive just before 11 a.m. and she was pronounced dead after efforts to revive her failed. They did an autopsy on this baby, y'all. Her cause of death was acute alcohol poisoning, and her blood alcohol concentration at 4 years old was 0.68, more than 8 times the legal limit for an adult. That it's insane. And I mean, just lethal for a child to have consumed this. And lethal for an adult as well. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, so if that's lethal for an adult, imagine what it did on this baby's body. During the investigation, Roxanne Record told detectives she took, quote, full responsibility for the child's death, reportedly saying that she messed up, this went too far, and that she had ruined everyone's lives. Khadija Record gave inconsistent statements to the investigators. Roxanne was initially charged with first-degree murder and cruelty to a juvenile. Prosecutors presented evidence during her trial describing a pattern of harsh treatment towards China, and the defense argued the death was a tragic accident and that Roxanne attempted CPR on the child. The jury convicted her of the lesser charge of manslaughter. She faces up to 40 years in prison, and the sentencing is scheduled for August the 10th. So the daughter was also arrested, and she was charged in connection with the case, but her court date is scheduled for next month.
Yeah, life in prison, no parole, period.
Done.
I mean, that is as stupid an act as I've ever heard.
This is beyond
Disgusting.
stupid. This is evil. You know what alcohol does to an adult because you drink it. And then you left it on the counter where the child could have, gotten a hold of it. If she even did, Jim.
Yeah.
If the child even did. And then you put her on her knees and force her to guzzle out. I mean, an adult wouldn't want to do that. How this is just a manslaughter is beyond me.
Yeah,
This
I don't
is
understand.
child abuse.
Seems like there was a intent there. You should have known it would kill her.
This is so
Kill
cruel.
this baby. So that's intent. So how is that manslaughter?
I-
Manslaughter is killing with no intent to kill.
Yeah, but manslaughter,
Right.
But manslaughter also has an element that you have some sort of culpability in that person's death. So, like, we can just leave it at that. But I don't understand how they got the jury. I mean, this is how the system works, though. Justice system. They felt like it was met the muster of just manslaughter. But I am appalled by this. Not everybody deserves to be a parent. That child deserved better. And you are a horrific human being. And I don't care if you took responsibility for it. I mean, it's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late. That baby's dead and died a very miserable death. Golly.
All right. That's all we got for today. We're going to go into overtime. So if you want to listen to that, check out the Patreon. We're going to be covering more. Today, we're going to be covering, as a matter of fact, everything from a Domino's pizza delivery driver runs over a customer after he gets no tip. We're going to talk about another utterly unrelated segment. We're going to talk about a assault on an airline, a Delta airline that was in Miami, Florida, where an assault took place and a love note was left. That's all I'm going to tell you on that. You'll have to listen to check it out. You can get those links in the description of this podcast. Kelly, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I do have some final thoughts. Listen, guys, please pay attention when you're in school zones. Put your phones down and be very, very careful. We do love all of y'all and we appreciate everything that you do for our show. So let's do one kind thing for everybody, which is what Miss Katie asked, that people do a kind thing every day. And so that's my request.
There you go. And we're going to go into overtime. For everybody else, I'm Jim Chapman.
I'm Kelly Jennings.
And we're your host of Crime
Wire
Weekly.